everybody, and welcome back to our series called Fast Forward, lessons from really the first week of all, as we look at Genesis 1 and how it thrusts us forward into other parts of Scripture. I'm with Tim Philpott, and we have been having these conversations about creation and what creation shows us when we go to other points of Scripture. And today we're on what would be, many would call the second day of creation, when God put the clouds in the sky, really, these containers for water, which reminds us, of course, of rain and fog and mist and all kinds of things that can be part of the game. So I asked Tim to share because Tim can be a bit of a glutton for golf punishment. He'll go out in just about anything. But what was the worst day he's ever played in?
Well, nowadays I don't play in bad weather. Not really.
You finally got smart.
Yeah, in the old days, when you're playing a little bit of tournament of golf, if they tell you that you're playing, you go out and you play. I feel sorry for these pros that show up at places like Pebble Beach on a bad day. It's just, you can just tell it's utter misery when they're playing in 46-degree weather and the rain is coming sideways, but the show must go on. And of course, if you go to Scotland or Ireland, you're likely, if you paid all that money to go on a 10-day golf trip, you take a rain suit and you just do things that you would never even think about doing on a regular day. You and I played in such a day, I think, didn't we, at Brora? You reminded me that you had your hole-in-one, was kind of nasty. So you just do it. That's all you do. It's funny that the one day that I really do remember was at a place called Western Gales in Scotland.
Oh, sure. Uh-huh.
And I was there looking for a caddy. I had a caddy there in the 1980s. And now fast forward 30 years, literally 30 years later, and I went there looking for Donald. And so it's a long, funny story. I did not find Donald. I found his brother in the caddy shack, but only because I was there to look for Donald. I went ahead and played that day by myself. And I've never been that wet in my life. I mean, that was the day that I finally said, you know what? This is it. I'm done with this. This is completely crazy. I can't hold on to the golf club. I'm sorry, but golf's supposed to be fun, and this is not. So that was it.
Well, I guess you have that luxury because you spend a good part of each summer in Scotland now, so you can take a few days off. But you're right about that traveling when you're somewhere that you came a long way to be, and you're not going to be there very long.
Yeah,
you go out anyway. So.
Yeah. But it's one of the great things about golf. Golf is not played in a bowling alley.
That's right.
Golf is played on God's earth with God's elements, which includes wind, rain, etc. And it's why we like golf, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah. So here in Genesis 1, we see God setting the clouds in the sky and basically creating this distance, this expanse between the skies and the earth. And as we go forward in Scripture and we read things like Isaiah 55, where it talks about God's ways being higher than our ways, we begin to understand that there is this separation between us and God, and particularly between us and God's holiness and us and God's intellect and God's strength. And every asset of God obviously is so much more accelerated than our own. And we begin to see that difference. And yet that's also the beginning of recognizing our need for God, isn't it? That distance.
Yeah, I talked about it briefly 2 weeks ago when I mentioned Proverbs 30 and this outstanding proverb written by Agur. But the word that comes to my mind in discussing this whole idea of the holiness of God and the separation between him and us and the fact that he loves us anyway.
Yes.
Is a word that I learned a few years ago now called Hesed, Hesed.
Yes.
And in fact, I don't know how it happened, but somebody sent me this book recently entitled Inexpressible, Hesed and the Mystery of God's Loving Kindness. The word was introduced to me by a theologian scholar named John Oswald, who's a good friend of mine. And then this is a book written by the singer Michael Card.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
And Michael said that he thought it would take him 1 year to write the book, but it took him 10 years. And It's a very simple little book that I highly recommend to anybody. But it's trying to describe this word Hesed which is a word that it has no equal in English. It's a Hebrew word that we don't have a good word for. It's often interpreted as loving kindness, but it's usually mixed with another word. It's all over the Old Testament, and it's
Right.
kind of my favorite word. And here's the essence of it, and the description that Michael comes up with is something that when you deserve nothing, but you receive everything,
Mm.
that's Hesed. And you think about it, of course, that's the kind of love that God has for us. We deserve nothing. Now, most of us like to say, "Oh, no, I deserve something." No, you don't. You deserve nothing, but I'm going to give you not just something, I'm going to give you everything. God gives us himself, everything, when we deserve nothing. It's a love that we can't really even describe, and there actually is no word for it in English, which is why our minds can't quite get around it. But there is this gap between a holy God and us unholy golfers that's very severe. And God bridged that gap through his son, Jesus Christ, and has made life possible for us. But it's because of that great love that we can barely even comprehend.
Yeah. Well, and obviously he first bridged that gap in creation, just saying,
Yeah.
here, I'm going to put my fingerprints, like we talked about, on my creation here, and be, the mudslinger. Really, I'm gonna throw the mud where I want it, and I'm gonna create all of these things, and I'm gonna bring men to life, and we're gonna get there. But it is amazing that God, who is so distant, has come so near. Well,
Amen.
thanks, Tim.
Yeah. Yeah.
Appreciate the
Thank you.
time this week, and we'll be together again soon, and be
Good.
together with all of you, we hope, and look forward to seeing you then.
Thank you.